What is up, Art Maxers? Today, we are going to be talking about a subject that is very near and dear to all of our hearts. And that subject is none other than failure. Failure is a part of nearly every process. Failure is something that we are all going to have to face in some capacity or another. Now, when you're an artist, failure does look a little different, and that's what we're here to address today. Types of failure that hurt the worst, those are the types of failure that A, you weren't expecting, and B, that you didn't learn much from. Now, when you're an artist, your intent is always to learn as much as possible with every single piece, every single study, every single moment. The artist is one who is always absorbing information, visually and otherwise, in order to create. You have to kind of document things internally, and you internalize the visuals and the ideas and the imagery, and then your job is to create based on those things. Now, whether that is for clients or for yourself is another matter, but regardless, you may fail on your journey to creating those things. You may even fail to take them inside of your visual library. But again, if you are expecting to fail in certain capacities, and I'm not talking about expecting to fail to such a degree that it is paralyzing you, I'm talking about failing in that you want to learn how to do something, how to execute something, how to raise your abilities to a new level, but you aren't comfortable with what that looks like, what that process looks like. And again, that process of improvement and the process of creation is laden with failure. You couldn't hide from it if you tried. You basically would have to just isolate yourself in every conceivable capacity, and then you would still be failing at something, because the word is going to come to the fore, and you're going to have to learn to handle it. So that's what this video is about. It's about learning to fail like an artist, learning to grasp as much from every failure as possible, and to fail less and less with every consecutive attempt. At least that's the goal. So in this particular lesson, this particular demo, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be working forward from black and working on my values and forms. Now, I don't have any idea what I'm painting, so the chances of failure are pretty high. But that being said, I do have the intent to learn something in the process and to fail less next time I start with a very dark canvas and pull forms from it. Because whenever you're trying to get comfortable in a certain area, like if your pieces are all really bright or really high key and you haven't really learn to use dark values, the best way to learn how to swim in the dark is to jump into it. So with an incredibly dark canvas, you are forced to pull form in a certain way. You're forced to paint in a certain way and consider shapes and tones differently. And that part of the process is really intriguing, but you also have to sort of decipher what it is you're going to do in the darkness. It's like every value up from black is pretty much a representation of light illuminating something in some capacity. And you're trying to work with that light to pull something out. It helps if you have an idea, a silhouette, or something in mind, because that will endow you with the ability to bring it forth a little bit easier. Sometimes you can noodle on a silhouette until you get it. Other times you'll just have to keep on making lots of different shapes, but the thing is it looks a lot like failure, and that is perfectly fine as long as you're creating and learning in the process. And then eventually something will stick and something will click, and you can follow that for a little while. And again, as you're following it, you'll have some successes and you'll have some failures, but you know that you're moving forward because in the process you'll sink your teeth into some aspect or element, and that will then start to carry you forward. And you can feel that intuitively, like you don't want to just keep getting rid of whatever it is you're doing or keep starting over at the previous step. It looks more like, oh, No, something is taking shape. The composition is unfolding. The song is progressing. The meal is cooking. All of these things are just giving credence to that progress, but also, again, expecting to fail. And I'm gonna sound like a broken record by the end of this because I want you to be comfortable with it. I want you to just embrace the fact that you have to fail in order to move forward. It's just how it is. It's just how all of us learn. Now, again, the learning is a key, crucial element to the process of failure. And you can review that learning in the midst of the pain that you'll feel from the failure. Now, different failures bring about different degrees of pain, and different degrees of learning bring about different degrees of pleasure or kind of a self-fulfillment or a pleasedness that enters your being. So the awareness of your pluses and your minuses, your pros and your cons, and thinking between those poles will really help you to get more in the mentality of, hey, failure's fine, failure's all right. So I feel like I'm almost in a 3D space now. I've pulled the form from the canvas to a degree where I have tonal separation and I have something interesting for me to look at, something that my eye wants to develop and my hand wants to continue working on. I know now that even though this does not look like much and may not look like much, I am getting mental imagery based on it. It's not too abstract, it's not too broken, it's not too weak to develop. And so, again, as I proceed with it, I expect to hit some failure snags. I expect to get rid of large portions of it until we start coming upon the point of progress and pivoting. So I'm definitely seeing a very horse-like creature coming out of this. This is just a horse's torso, and I'm going to need more room on the canvas, so I'm not afraid to expand that guy. I'm afraid to pull that out. It wants to be a little bit more, so I'm going to just take this dark value, drop that in the background, and continue my quote-unquote 3D sculpting. This is the exciting part, where again you're seeing a little bit of progress, and it's not really all that amazing, but it's just enough to give you that internal feeling of, hey, it's all right to proceed, or I'm getting somewhere here. Like, not only am I seeing the values that I was trying to see and understanding some of the transparency of shadows and some of the forms of light coming forth toward the viewer, I'm starting to see edges as well. And edges are so beautiful and so crucial to understand as you progress in your painting journey, because edges are how all of your brush strokes and all of the different elements of the pictorial plane will kind of coalesce based on their edges. And you can use edges to make them very soft and very airy, or you can make them very hard and crisp and sharp to the eye, and it's just so much easier to see them when you're working purely and or at least very close to grayscale. You got to get kind of excited about your fundamentals in order to really advance at them. I find finding new ways to apply them, finding new ways to kind of enjoy learning and elaborating upon the things that you should be considering chiefly as you move forward. I'm not digging the proportions there, so I'm going to kind of remodel a little bit as I move up the neck region. I mean, it is a horse-like creature, but I'm still giving myself enough liberty to not try and rip a perfectly photorealistic grayscale horse out of my brain, because that takes a lot of practice. And I mean, I haven't even spent a lot of time around horses physically. There's so many elements that need to come together in order for things to really stick in your mind. And if you practice them enough, then they come out pretty naturally. But I would definitely argue that there's a holistic sense when it comes to kind of getting a full, believable image out. Not necessarily even hyper-realistic, but a really believable image. You kind of need a couple different modalities of experience. or you just need to be so hype with the fundamentals that you can endow whatever it is you're creating with enough fundamental technical prowess to just kind of move by on that. There are a couple different vectors, but I digress. It's about just finding the experiences that you have and drawing from them, and also trying to mind and maintain certain fundamental ideas and elements as you do so. So, gotta give it some sort of head lately. I mean, I'm really not about the design in this particular case. I'm more about the forms and values and shadow shapes, because this is more fundamental practice, but sometimes I just can't help but consider the design, like, what do I want this to look like if it's going to maybe end up to be a finished product? Because sometimes your failures are just for you to really learn, and they're ugly enough to not really want to, showcase, and that's fine. You can fail ugly and not want to show it. It's totally cool, and that can be part of your failure deterrent system, your failure fortitude system. It's just about getting to the point wherein you are willing to do the things you need to do to improve, but also having fun with that, having fun with the potential to not only get better, but also seeing kind of where you fall in the mud, or where things get wonky or goofy, and taking it kind of lightheartedly. If you take it too seriously, it's just fodder. It's fodder for fire, and you want to be fired up. You don't want to get completely torched and burn out. So there's a lot of different things to kind of balance and maintain when it comes to playing in realms of potential failure, but it all goes back to learning as you fail, and it also returns to finding joy, finding those elements of joy. Because if it's not fun, we just don't want to do it. It's very human to, if you associate too much pain with an activity, you're going to just do less of it. It's a pretty simple thing to understand, but there's lots of nuance there. Like, if we perceive ourselves as getting the reward from it, even though it's hurting us, then we will continue to do it. If we are kind of inclined to that track of behavior, such with addiction or something, but there are positive addictions and receptors too, like in getting really engrossed in your day-to-day practices or drawings or activities, getting those good feeling brain chemicals like serotonin and endorphins into your system by kind of priming yourself for whatever activities you're doing. It's really more in our favor just to accept the things that come up on the path to progress. So again, I want to make this somewhat interesting as a finished result, and my mind is kind of winding on that right now. But in the meantime, I can always continue to kind of play and fill in certain shadow elements and shapes. And I'm always looking up here to see the big read of everything. Like, is it working as a thumbnail? Is it interesting to look at? Would it be a decent YouTube video thumbnail? We can just call this the fail beast. And this is the thing that will come and bite you in the night if you are too scared of failure. But yeah, it's I don't really have to consider the design too much. I can always work with it later, even if for the purposes of this video demonstration, I've essentially made my point, and it is that it's all right to fail, and you can fail like an artist in that you're learning from your failure and you're setting yourself up for little successes along the way. But if you, again, are too afraid to fail, are not going to get out there and do what it takes to learn, do what it takes to get better at your craft, then I'm going to send the fail beast after you. And the fail beast is not a fun creature. You see this thing? It's all nasty, wispy shapes, kind of heavy and solid and matte looking. I don't know if you want this thing to be kind of hanging around your kitchen at night. So I would encourage you to get out there and fail a little bit. And that is all I have for you today, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed the video, that you learned a thing or two about failure, or rather were just reminded a thing or two about failure, that there's no need to fear it, that as long as you don't fail so hard that you fall out of the game, then you still get to play. Anyway, I'm Taylor Payton. If you want to learn more about drawing, painting, all that good stuff, edges, values, the basic fundamental tools that help every artist express their highest and most potent ideas, then you can check out some of my courses in the description box. Beginner drawing course, beginner painting course, all that good stuff. Otherwise, sign up for the list and you get free lessons, so there's that too. Anyway, I'll catch you in the next video. I encourage you to share some of your stories in the description box of how you have overcome failure or things you're struggling with, and I will do my utmost to kind of curb the content creation to those vectors. Anyway, happy creating. I'll see you in the next vid. Take care.